Adam here, talking to you from my cave. If you're a regular watcher of Test It, you are certainly familiar with my friend and collaborator Darrell Maloney, aka the Broken Nerd, and his prodigious and prolific output of incredible props. But what you haven't yet seen is all the work and effort Darrell puts in before he starts 3D printing his parts. That is, the digital modeling. So in this video, you're going to get a nice deep dive into Darrell's process, how he thinks, how he uses visual reference, and really it serves to illustrate that even digital modeling is simply a translation tool for translating what's in the modeler's head and putting it out onto the screen before he makes it a physical object. Watch Darrell make a Judge Dredd helmet starting now.
Hey everyone, my name is Darrell and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be modeling Judge Dredd helmet, but I'm going to be modeling the version that Sylvester Stallone wore in the original movie. I'm hoping in this video that you'll get a sense of the approach that I take to model helmets for 3D print. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so let's get started. As you can see, I have Cinema 4D up. This is the program that I use to model my helmets in and do any of my models in. I have some reference pictures on the side here. If you take notice, you'll see that I do have the newer style helmet in the program, and I'm just going to use that as a base or foundation for the model and then make the changes according to the reference photos. So as you can see here, I have a head bust. It's just a generic head bust. It's scaled to the size of my head, which is 24 inches. So what I usually start off with is a sphere, and I'm going to drop the segments or the polygon count down to 12. And I'm also going to change the type of sphere from standard to, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, hexahedron. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to actually scale this down before I start shaping it, and just get it down to a reasonable size that's close to the helmet size that we're trying to achieve. And now I'm going to delete 1/2 of this sphere. Hit UF, delete this, and then I'm going to drop this in a symmetry tool. And the reason why I'm dropping this in the symmetry tool is because instead of working on both sides of the helmet and creating double work for ourselves, I'm going to just be working on one side, and then being as in the symmetry tool, it'll reflect on the other side. So now I'm going to disable the bust and start scaling this to size. Alright, so now I'm going to start manipulating the points. Well, actually first I'm going to start deleting some polygons, so then this way we can get like the basic shape of the helmet. Alright, so next I'm going to straighten these bottom points, and I just use the scale tool and I'll set my Y to 0. So right now we're just getting the general shape of the helmet. We're just making sure that this matches with what we're going for. So this is where it helps to have blueprints, because you can really work out your shape and make sure that you are getting the general shape that you're looking for. This is the line that we want to work off of right here, because this is going to extend out. That's going to be an extrude that I do in a little bit here. Once we get a little further along, I'll do that extrude. So I just want to bring this back to match that line. Actually, I have a little bit more polygons than I need up in the front, so I'm just going to delete these two right here. So I'm actually going to start working on the front portion of the helmet. I'm going to bring these points down. I'm going to actually add another cut right down the middle of the helmet, and then I'm going to extrude these 2 points, but I'm only going to bring it to this point here because it doesn't have this X pattern on the older helmet or on the original helmet. It's actually kind of hard trying to work off of two references, so I'm just trying to make sure I maintain a decent shape for the helmet. And this will look a lot different once we start smoothing it out. This actually needs to be on an angle. Alright, so our shape is we're getting somewhere with our shape. Next, what I want to do is I'm going to figure out this portion here of the helmet. So how it comes down, comes out, comes down again, and then goes back. So what I can do is I can add a cut here and to get this shape here, or I can try and manipulate these points. And it almost looks like this portion here comes back further on this helmet, and it just may be the angle of the picture. I'm just gonna slide this back just a little bit more. Instead of making a cut, I just pulled these points back to start giving us, and to be quite honest with you, this is pretty much like the basic shape here. I'm just gonna make sure that things are lining up, that these points are lining up all right. And then next we're gonna start adding some detail, or we're gonna get the thickness of the helmet, and then start working on the surface area, start getting some of these detail lines. All right, so right now we have the basic shape of the helmet, and next I want to add this to the subdivision tool, which will give us a nice smooth surface. And this way we can see what the helmet is actually going to look like once we export it out. If you ever go on Thingiverse or you go to download a model and you see the models that look like this, you see a bunch of, it's really a rough surface. You see a lot of the polygon texture. It's because they didn't smooth the model out enough. And when you export it out as an STL with the Fong tag still on, you're not necessarily getting you're not really seeing what the model looks like when you export it out. So you may get a nice smooth model in the program, but once you export it out as an STL, it doesn't recognize that Fong tag that's on that was left on the model. So I take it off, so this way I can get a true representation of what the model is going to look like when I get ready to export it out. So once I add this here, now we get to see, and what I'll do is I'll up the subdivisions, and I usually work at 4. I try not to raise the subdivisions any higher than that, because we'll get a really high polygon count on the model, and then that tends to freeze up the program sometimes. So right now this is really rough because we haven't added any thickness to this, and I'm also getting some pinching in this area here. And the reason why that's happening is because this line here is extremely close to this line here. So these two lines are pretty close. So what I'll do is, after I get to the middle portion of the helmet, I'll clean this up so this way we're not getting some of this pinching, and then we're getting some pinching back here as well, again because this line is sitting close to these two lines here. So I'll show you how we'll take care of that in a minute. But first I want to go ahead and add the thickness to the helmet, and I'm going to turn our symmetry off, and what I'll do is I'll select all polygons, and then I'm going to extrude, but then I want to make sure that I create caps, and this just creates a space in between what I'm extruding. So if I extrude without the caps on, I'll get something that looks like this, and this is not what we want. We want an outer layer and an inner layer. So when I do create caps, it'll give us the outer and inner layer. And I want this kind of thick because as I was looking at the reference pictures, there's actually a slit or a cut in this area here for the visor to sit in, and we're going to recreate that or replicate that for this model. So I'll show you why I deleted this middle portion here. If I leave that on and turn on the symmetry tool and the subdivision, we'll get a hard line in the middle here. And then not only that, once I make this an editable object, we'll get manifolds, which we do not want. So what I'm going to do is turn all this off and then delete this portion. All right, so now I'm going to start cutting shapes into, well, I'm actually going to cut this detail line into the helmet. now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut another line along the path that I already created, and then I'm going to do an extrude to get this very fine indentation that runs along the border of the detail line. So now we're going to follow the same procedure and cut in this line, this detailed line that's in blue, and extrude out instead of extruding in. Alright, so now we can move on to the middle portion of the helmet. And I'm going to start off by doing an extrude along these polygons here, and then getting the basic shape for this area. Well, we're going to go back into our front view here, and I'm going to select these polygons, and I am going to do a quick path cut. Alright, now that's starting to look like something. So I'm going to bevel the edges and define the shape a little bit more. Now that looks like a Judge Dredd helmet. I'm going to model the badge or shield or the emblem separately. And then also I just noticed that this is straight and our zone kind of has that curve on the top here. So let me take care of that really quick. So for the mid part, what I'm going to do is utilize this shape. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to right click, copy, current state to object, delete this. I want this whole portion here. I'm going to split that off. And now I have this to work with. I'm just going to dissolve these so I can get rid of these points. So there's just like a cleaner surface to work off of. I'm actually going to print this on an SLA printer and mold and cast this piece. Cinema 4D has spline tools, and they already have spline shapes within the program. So I am going to select one of these stars, and it's really huge. I'm going to scale it down. And these are 5-point stars, so we're going to change our points to 5, and we'll hop into our front view. And we will turn down the opacity on the background image, so this way we can see what we're doing with the star. I'm gonna rotate this. I believe it's kind of weird in this program. 18 degrees. I will make this an editable object and then reset my rotation and then scale down. Alright, so he has 3 of these, and what I'll do is right click, copy, I want to say it's about right there, paste, and just move this the negative axis. Alright, so we have our 3 stars. And now what I'll do is I will throw the spline into an extrude, and we don't want it that far. I'm going to use these stars to cut into our badge. So I'm going to take the badge or the emblem, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to place both the stars and the badge in this boolean tool. And what that will do, it'll cut the stars into this badge. So I'm adding the emblem in first and then these stars. So we just have a few artifacts there, but that is fine. And the last part of this is to model the visor. And what I'll probably do is make this out of a sheet of acrylic. But it'd be nice to have the form so that when I do heat the acrylic up, I can just press that over the printed part. So this way we will have an almost exact shape that we can place into the helmet. But there is, the visor is cutting, there is a cut in the actual helmet for the visor to sit in. And I'm going to go ahead and create that cut. Alright, so here it is. We have a place for the visor to sit in. That's going to sit nicely in the helmet. It has room in there for it to fit in the helmet. And the last thing that we'll do is we'll cut a shape out for this to sit in the helmet. And that is it. And we're done with modeling this, and then we can export it out. I'll do a render so you guys can see what it would look like once we paint it. I usually like doing renderings of these models, but let's quickly cut into this, finish this up, and then I'll show you the final product. here it is. This is the final model, and everything has been finalized. So the helmet will print in 3 parts. You have the actual helmet, then you have the visor, and then the emblem or the shield that goes in the middle. And like I said, I will print the shield on a resin printer, and I'll hollow that out in a different program. I'll hollow that out using a mesh mixer, add the supports, and then print it out on an SLA printer. The helmet I'll print on a standard FDM printer, and the visor again will be printed, and then a piece of acrylic will be formed over that shape. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So here is a really quick render of the helmet. Alright, so that does it for this video. So the next steps is I'm going to actually export this out as STL files and get them on the printer. And I'm hoping I can bring you a video where I can show you the finishing of this helmet and yeah, walk you through that process as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Peace and love. God bless.